Dr. Hannah Kim opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt badly, and everything looked blurry. The ceiling above her was not the familiar white metal of her research ship. This ceiling was dark gray and covered with strange symbols that glowed with a soft blue light. She tried to sit up, but her body felt heavy and weak. Something was wrong, very wrong. This was not her cabin on the New Sol. The air smelled different too. It had a sharp smell, like burned metal, mixed with something she could not identify. Hannah forced herself to remember what happened. 3 days ago, she had been working in her lab on the research vessel, New Sol. She was studying rock samples from the outer planets when the ship's alarm started screaming. Captain Yoon had called all crew to emergency stations over the ship's speaker system. She remembered running to the bridge. Through the main window, she saw them, huge ships unlike anything humans had ever built. They were dark and angular, with red lights running along their sides. The ships were at least 10 times larger than the New Sol. There were 5 of them surrounding her. Small research vessel Captain Yoon had tried to send a message to Earth, but the alien ships were blocking all communications. Then the weapons fire started. Bright green beams hit the New Sol again and again. The ship shook violently, and lights went out all over the bridge. Hannah remembered the captain shouting orders to abandon ship. She ran to the escape pods, but an explosion threw her against the wall. That was the last thing she remembered before waking up here. Now she looked around her prison cell. The walls were the same dark gray as the ceiling. There was a thin sleeping mat on the floor and a small hole in one corner that she guessed was meant for waste. A force field hummed across the only opening she could see. Beyond it was a corridor with more blue glowing symbols. She was alive, but her crew was probably dead. The thought made her stomach feel sick. Captain Yoon, Engineer Taik, Navigator Minji, and 12 other good people. All gone because they had found something they should not have found. The New Sol had been sent to investigate strange energy readings near the edge of human space. The readings did not match anything in Earth's databases. Command wanted to know if it was a natural phenomenon or something else. Now Hannah knew it was definitely something else. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Hannah quickly lay back down and tried to look weak and confused. She had no idea what these aliens wanted, but showing fear might keep her alive longer. A tall figure appeared beyond the force field. It was clearly not human. The creature stood almost 7 feet tall, with dark green, scaly skin. Its head was long and narrow like a snake, but with 4 glowing yellow eyes arranged in pairs. It wore what looked like a military uniform made of black metal plates. The creature touched something on its wrist, and the force field disappeared with a soft pop. It stepped into the cell and looked down at Hannah with those 4 alien eyes. It spoke. The words came from a small device attached to its chest. "You are awake, human female. I am Commander Dex of the Vorthok Imperial Fleet. You will answer my questions." The translation device made the alien's voice sound flat and emotionless, but Hannah could hear the threat behind the words. She made herself look scared and confused, which was not hard to do. "Where am I? What happened to my ship? Where is my crew?" she asked in a shaky voice. "Your primitive vessel was destroyed. You are the only survivor. You are now a prisoner of the Vorthok Empire." Commander Dex moved closer. "You will tell me about your homeworld. Where do you come from?" Hannah's mind raced. These aliens had destroyed her ship easily. They learned about Earth's real defenses. They might decide to attack her home planet. She had to be very careful about what she told them. "I'm from Earth. Please, I'm just a scientist. I was only studying rocks and minerals. I don't know anything about military things." She made her voice sound weak and frightened. Commander Dex made a sound like a hiss. "Earth, how many ships does your species have? What weapons do you possess?" This was the dangerous part. Hannah knew she had to give answers that sounded truthful, but would not reveal Earth's true strength. The Vorthok clearly thought humans were a weak species based on her small research ship. We don't have many ships, maybe a few hundred. Most are, like mine, just for research and exploring. Our weapons are basic energy beams, nothing very powerful. She was not lying exactly. Earth did have a few hundred ships, but she did not mention that each one was a massive warship, capable of destroying entire fleets. The alien commander seemed pleased with this answer. A young species with primitive technology. Your world will make a good addition to our empire. Your people will serve us well as workers. Hannah's blood went cold, but she kept her face blank. These creatures were planning to invade Earth. They thought humans would be easy to conquer based on what they had seen of the new soul. How many planets has your species colonized? Commander Dex continued his questions. Just a few. We're still learning how to travel between stars. We only discovered faster than light travel a short time ago. Again, this was technically true. Humans had only been traveling faster than light for 50 years, which was recent compared to most alien civilizations. Commander Thex made more hissing sounds that might have been laughter. Pathetic. The Vorthok Empire has ruled 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. Your species is nothing but insects waiting to be stepped on. The alien turned and walked toward the cell opening. You will remain here while we travel to your home world. When we arrive, you will help us understand your people's weaknesses. Okay? You may live to see your species become useful. Slaves. The force field reappeared across the cell opening. Commander Dex's footsteps faded down the corridor, leaving Hannah alone with her thoughts. She had learned several important things. These Vorthok had a large empire and were used to conquering weaker species. They clearly thought humans would be easy targets. Most importantly, they were taking her to Earth, which meant Earth would have warning of their approach. Hannah lay back on the thin mat and tried to think. She was a prisoner on an alien warship heading toward her home planet. The Vorthok thought she was a helpless scientist from a primitive world. They had no idea what they were really flying into. She almost smiled despite her situation. The aliens thought she was alone and defenseless. They thought Earth was unprepared. They were about to learn how wrong they were about humanity. But first, she had to survive long enough to warn her people. And maybe, if she was very careful and very lucky, she could turn this disaster into something much better for Earth. 2 days passed before Commander Dex returned to Hannah's cell. During that time, she had been given water and some kind of gray paste that tasted terrible but kept her alive. She spent the hours listening to the sounds of the ship and trying to learn about her captors. The Vorthok ship was huge. She could hear hundreds of footsteps in the corridors at different times. Voices spoke in their hissing language through the walls. Sometimes she heard what sounded like weapons being tested or machinery being repaired. This was clearly a warship, not just a simple patrol vessel. When Commander Dex appeared at her cell again, he was not alone. 2 other Vorthok soldiers stood behind him, both carrying weapons that looked like they could burn a hole through steel. Their 4 eyes glowed brighter than before, and Hannah could sense their excitement. Human female, you will come with us now. Fleet Admiral Gorthok wishes to speak with you personally. Commander Thex's translation device made his words sound even more threatening than usual. Hannah stood up slowly, making sure to look weak and scared. Please, I told you everything I know. I'm just a scientist. I don't know anything about military secrets. One of the soldiers made a hissing laugh. The Admiral will decide what you know, soft creature. They marched her through long corridors filled with Vorthok crew members. The aliens stopped their work to stare at her as she passed, made threatening gestures while others simply watched with those glowing yellow eyes. Hannah kept her head down and tried to look as harmless as possible. The corridors were lined with screens showing star maps and what looked like battle plans. She caught glimpses of ship formations and weapon specifications. Everything she saw told her the same story. The Vorthok were preparing for a major military operation. They entered a massive chamber that could only be the bridge. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered with blinking lights and holographic displays. Dozens of Vorthok officers worked at control stations, while screens showed the view outside the ship. Hannah could see other Vorthok vessels flying in formation around them. At the center of the bridge sat the largest Vorthok she had seen yet. Fleet Admiral Gorthok was almost 8 feet tall, with darker scales than the others. Scars covered his head and arms, telling the story of many battles. When he looked at Hannah, his 4 eyes seemed to burn with hunger for conquest. "So this is the human specimen," Admiral Gorthok said. His voice was deeper and more menacing than Commander Dex's. "You are smaller and weaker than I expected. Your species will make excellent workers in our mines." Hannah forced herself to tremble. "Please, sir, I don't want any trouble. I just want to go home." The Admiral stood up from his command chair and walked down to where she stood. Up close, he was even more frightening. His breath smelled like rotting meat, and his claws looked sharp enough to cut through bone. "Tell me about your homeworld's defenses. How many warships does Earth have? What kind of weapons do they carry?" His voice was quiet, but filled with threat. This was the moment Hannah had been preparing for. She had to give answers that would sound believable, but lead the Vorthok into a trap. She made her voice shake with fear. "We only have about 300 ships total. Most of them are like mine, just for research and cargo transport. Achaea, the military ships are bigger, but they only have basic plasma cannons and missile systems. Nothing very advanced." What she did not tell them was that those 300 ships were actually massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying an entire enemy fleet. The plasma cannons she mentioned could slice through any armor the Vorthok had ever seen. Admiral Gorthok's eyes grew brighter with pleasure. 300 primitive vessels against my invasion fleet of 50 battle cruisers. Your people will not even slow us down." Commander Thex stepped forward. "Admiral, the human female also mentioned that her species only recently discovered faster than light travel. They have no experience with real warfare." Again, this was technically true. Humans had only been traveling faster than light for 50 years. But what the Vorthok did not know was that humans had spent those 50 years preparing for exactly this kind of encounter. Earth's military had been built specifically to fight against unknown alien threats. "Excellent," Admiral Gorthok said. "We will arrive at their homeworld in 12 standard days. Their primitive ships will surrender immediately when they see the power of the Vorthok Empire." The Admiral turned to address his bridge crew. "Prepare invasion protocols. I want landing ships ready to deploy the moment we defeat their pathetic fleet. We will take their planet in less than 1 day." The bridge erupted in hissing sounds that Hannah realized was Vorthok cheering. These aliens were already celebrating a victory they had not won yet. Their arrogance was incredible, but it was also exactly what Earth needed. "What about their planetary defenses?" asked one of the officers. "Do they have orbital weapons, platforms, or surface-to-space missiles?" Admiral Gorthok looked at Hannah with his burning eyes. "Answer him, human. What protects your world from attack?" Hannah made herself look even more frightened. "We have some defense satellites around Earth, but they're not very powerful. Maybe 50 or 60 of them. Terra missile bases on the surface, but they're old and not very accurate." The Vorthok officers laughed at this information. What they did not know was that those defense satellites were actually some of the most advanced weapons platforms ever built. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy multiple enemy ships. The missile bases she mentioned were equipped with weapons that could track and hit targets moving faster than light. "This will be easier than conquering the Zelthon colonies," said Commander Vex. At least they had energy shields around their planets. Admiral Gorthok nodded. "The human homeworld will fall before their sun sets. Their resources will fuel our empire for generations, and their people will serve us faithfully or die." The Admiral gestured to the guards. "Return the prisoner to her cell. Make sure she stays healthy. We will need her to help us understand human psychology when we begin the occupation." As they marched her back through the corridors, Hannah allowed herself a small feeling of satisfaction. The Vorthok were walking straight into the most sophisticated military trap in human history. They thought they were hunting helpless prey, but they were actually flying toward the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. Earth's military had been preparing for this day. Since the first human ship left the solar system, every defense system, every weapon, every strategy had been designed around one simple idea. Someday, something would try to destroy humanity, and humanity would be ready. In 12 days, the Vorthok would learn that some prey fights back. Sometimes, the prey wins. Back in her cell, Hannah lay on a thin mat and smiled for the first time since her capture. The aliens thought she was alone and helpless. They had no idea that Earth was already preparing their welcome. The next week passed slowly for Hannah. The Vorthok had moved her to a better cell after her meeting with Admiral Gorthok. This new room had a real bed, a table, and even a small window that showed the stars outside. They were treating her like a valuable prisoner now, instead of just captured prey. Commander Vex visited her every day to ask more questions about human society. He wanted to know about Earth's government, its cities, and how humans organize their lives. Hannah answered carefully, giving information that was true but not complete. "Tell me about your military leaders," Dex said during one visit. "Who commands your defense forces?" Hannah pretended to think hard. "We have generals and admirals like any military, but they're not very experienced. We've never fought a real war against aliens before. Most of our conflicts have been small disputes between human colonies." This was another careful half-truth. Earth's military leaders had indeed never fought aliens, but they had spent decades studying every form of warfare imaginable. They had planned for every possible scenario, including invasion by technologically advanced species. "Good," Commander Dex said. "Inexperienced leaders make poor decisions under pressure. They will surrender quickly when they see our superior firepower." During these conversations, Hannah learned more about the Vorthok Empire. They had been conquering other species for thousands of years. Their method was always the same: find a weaker civilization, attack with overwhelming force, and crush any resistance before it could organize. The Vorthok had never met serious opposition. Every species they encountered either surrendered immediately or was destroyed within days. This had made them confident, perhaps too confident. "How many species serve in your empire?" Hannah asked one day, trying to sound curious rather than worried. "Intelligent species now serve the Vorthok," Vex replied proudly. "Some we conquered through war. Others surrendered when they saw our power. Your humans will become number 48. Hannah nodded and tried to look impressed. Inside, she was calculating. 47 conquered species meant the Vorthok were used to easy victories. They had developed tactics that worked against weak opponents, but they might not be prepared for a real fight. The commander seemed to enjoy talking about past conquests. The Kalani had twice as many ships as your humans, but their weapons were even more primitive. We destroyed their entire fleet in 6 hours. The Thurok tried to hide on their moon bases, but our ground forces found them within days. Each story followed the same pattern. The Vorthok would arrive in overwhelming numbers, destroy the enemy quickly, and face no organized resistance. It was clear that they had never encountered a species that was prepared for them. As the days passed, Hannah was allowed to move around parts of the ship, always with guards, but she could observe the Vorthok crew at work. What she saw, both worried and encouraged her. The Vorthok were clearly experienced warriors. Their ship ran smoothly, their weapons were well maintained, and their soldiers moved with the confidence of veterans. But she also noticed something important. They were overconfident to the point of carelessness. Security procedures were relaxed because they were used to fighting inferior enemies. Battle plans were simple because complex tactics had never been necessary. Equipment was powerful, but not designed for prolonged fighting against equally advanced opponents. "When will we reach Earth?" Hannah asked Commander Thex during one of their talks. "5 more days," he replied. "Admiral Gorthok is eager to add your homeworld to our empire. He believes it will be one of our easier conquests." Hannah felt a mixture of fear and hope. Fear because 50 Vorthok warships were still a serious threat, even to Earth's defenses. Hope because she was beginning to understand that the Vorthok had serious weaknesses. That night, lying on her bed and looking out at the stars, Hannah thought about what was happening back on Earth. The new soul had been missing for almost 3 weeks now. Earth's military would have noticed by now and started investigating. She remembered the protocols. Any research vessel that failed to report in was assumed to be in danger. Search and rescue teams would be sent to the last known location. When they found the wreckage of the new soul, they would know that Earth faced a new threat. Captain June Park commanded the Earth Defense Force's Rapid Response Fleet. Hannah had met him once at a military briefing. He was a careful man who planned for every possibility. He found evidence of hostile aliens. He would not wait for orders from Earth. He would begin preparations immediately. The more Hannah thought about it, the more certain she became that Earth was already getting ready. Captain Park would have mobilized the defense fleet. Intelligence teams would be analyzing any wreckage they found from the new soul. Earth's best tactical minds would be developing battle plans. The Vorthok thought they were approaching a helpless target, but they were actually flying toward carefully prepared trap. 2 days later, Admiral Gorthak summoned Hannah to the bridge again. The massive alien looked even more pleased with himself than before. "Human, female, look upon your doom," he said, gesturing toward the main screen. The display showed a tactical map of the solar system. 50 red dots represented the Vorthok fleet, now only 3 days away from Earth. Blue dots showed what the Vorthok sensors had detected around the human homeworld. "Your pathetic defense fleet," Admiral Gorthok said with obvious amusement. 12 ships arranged in a simple defensive formation. "They are not even trying to hide." Hannah looked at the screen and had to work hard not to smile. The Vorthok sensors were showing them exactly what Earth's military wanted them to see. 12 ships in an obvious defensive position, apparently caught off guard by the approaching invasion force. What the Vorthok could not detect were the hundreds of other ships positioned throughout the solar system, hidden by advanced stealth systems that made them invisible to alien sensors. The Vorthok was seeing the bait, not the trap. "Will your people surrender when they see our superior numbers?" Commander Dex asked. Tana made herself look sad and defeated. "They might try to fight at first, but yes, they'll probably surrender when they realize they can't win." The bridge crew made those hissing sounds of approval again. They were already counting their victory before the battle had even begun. Admiral Gorthok turned back to his tactical displays. "Prepare for final approach. All ships will drop out of hyperspace in attack formation. We will destroy the human fleet quickly and then demand the planet's surrender." As Hannah was escorted back to her quarters, she felt a strange calm settling over her. The waiting was almost over. In 3 days, The Vorthok would learn what happened when predators tried to hunt humanity. They thought she was alone and helpless. They thought Earth was unprepared and weak. In 3 days, they would discover how wrong they were about everything. The alarm that woke Hannah was different from the usual ship sounds she had grown used to. This was urgent and loud, echoing through every corridor of the Vorthok flagship. She could hear running footsteps and shouted orders in the alien language. Through her small window, she could see the stars had stopped moving. The Vorthok fleet had arrived at Earth's solar system. Heavy footsteps approached her door, and Commander Dex appeared. But he looked different now. His 4 eyes were brighter than usual, and his movements seemed more tense. 2 guards flanked him, their weapons ready. "Come, human. Admiral Gorthak wants you on the bridge to witness your species surrender." Dex's translation device made his words sound confident, but Hannah could hear something else underneath. Was that nervousness? They marched through corridors filled with Vorthok crew members running to battle stations. The aliens moved with practiced efficiency, but Hannah noticed small signs of confusion. Officers were checking their instruments twice and speaking in hushed, worried tones. When they reached the bridge, the scene was controlled chaos. Dozens of officers worked at glowing consoles while Admiral Gorthak stood at the center, studying. Multiple displays. The main screen showed the space around Earth, and what Hannah saw there made her heart race with hope. The Vorthok had expected to find 12 human ships arranged in a simple defensive line. Instead, their sensors were showing something that made no sense to them. Arrayed in perfect formation were massive vessels, unlike anything in the Vorthok database. Each ship was at least twice the size of a Vorthok battlecruiser. Their hulls were sleek and dark, covered with weapon ports that glowed with contained energy. These were not the primitive research vessels the Vorthok had expected. "Admiral," one of the sensor officers called out, his voice filled with confusion. "I am detecting 12 major vessels, but they are much larger than our intelligence indicated. Each one appears to be a heavy dreadnought-class warship." Admiral Gorthak's scarred face twisted with anger. "Impossible," the human female told us. "They only have basic ships with primitive weapons." He turned his burning eyes toward Hannah. "What is the meaning of this deception?" Hannah dropped her act completely. She stood straighter, her voice becoming clear and strong. "I told you Earth had a few hundred ships. I never said they were small." Before the Admiral could respond, every communication system on the bridge crackled to life. A human voice spoke in perfect Vorthok language, the words clear and commanding. "Fleet, this is Captain June Park of the Earth Defense Force. You have committed acts of war against humanity by destroying our research vessel and taking prisoners. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of machinery. Admiral Gorthak stared at the screen in disbelief. "How do they know our language? How long have they been watching us?" The answer came as more contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships decloaked all around the Vorthok fleet, emerging from stealth systems that had made them completely invisible. Sleek destroyers and cruisers took positions above, below, and on all sides of the alien invasion force. "Admiral," the sensor officer's voice was barely above a whisper. "I am detecting over 200 human vessels. They have us completely surrounded." "Okay?" Commander Dex grabbed Hannah's arm roughly. "You knew this would happen. You led us into a trap." Hannah looked him straight in his 4 glowing eyes. "I told you exactly what you wanted to hear. You assumed humans were weak because you've never faced a species that was ready for you." On the main screen, the 12 Earth dreadnoughts began moving into attack formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built specifically to fight unknown alien threats. Their plasma cannon arrays could cut through any known armor, and their missile systems could track targets, moving faster than light. Admiral Gorthak was studying his tactical displays with growing horror. Their ships are using technology we do not recognize. These energy signatures are beyond anything in our database. Captain Park's voice filled the bridge again. You have 30 seconds to lower your shields and surrender. If you do not comply, we will disable your ships by force. The Admiral's pride would not let him back down. All ships, prepare to attack. We are still Warthog warriors. We do not surrender to inferior species. Admiral, wait, Commander Dex said urgently. Our ships are designed to fight primitive opponents. These humans have technology we do not understand. Perhaps we should consider their offer, but Gorthok was beyond listening to reason. Fire all weapons. Destroy the human fleet. Ships opened fire with their plasma cannons and missile systems. Green energy beams and explosive projectiles streaked toward the Earth vessels. For a moment, it looked like the alien firepower might be effective. Then the human ships responded. Earth's plasma cannons fired beams of pure energy that made the Orthok weapons look like flashlights. The first volley cut through the shields of 3 Orthok ships like they were made of paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as alien vessels suffered critical damage. The Earth destroyers launched fighter squadrons that moved with impossible speed and agility. The small human fighters danced around the clumsy Vorthok ships, their weapons finding weak points in alien armor with surgical precision. Shields down to 40%, an officer reported. The human weapons are more powerful than anything we have encountered. How is this possible? Admiral Gorthok demanded. They are supposed to be a primitive species. Hannah stepped closer to the Admiral, no longer showing any fear. We've been preparing for this day since we first left our solar system. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic was designed around one simple idea. Someday, something would try to destroy humanity. The battle was turning into a massacre. The Vorthok ships were tough, but they were not designed to fight opponents with equal or superior technology. Half the alien fleet was already disabled or destroyed, while the human ships had barely taken any damage. Admiral, Commander Dex said desperately, "We must surrender before they destroy us all." Captain Park's voice came over the communications again. "Vorthok fleet, you are outgunned and surrounded. This is your final chance to surrender." Admiral Gorthok looked around his bridge at the displays showing his fleet being systematically destroyed. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders that could save their lives. Finally, the proud alien commander spoke the words he had never thought he would say. "All ships, cease fire. Lower shields and prepare to surrender." The firing stopped. In the sudden silence, Canna could hear the Admiral's heavy breathing and the quiet hum of damaged systems. Commander Kex looked at her with something that might have been respect. "You were not what we expected, human." Hannah smiled for the first time since her capture. "That's the point. You thought I was alone and helpless. You thought Earth was unprepared. You were wrong about everything." On the screen, Earth's mighty fleet held position around the defeated Warthog ships. The trap had worked perfectly, and humanity had won its first victory against an alien empire. The space battle lasted only 18 minutes. When it was over, 37 Vorthog ships were disabled and drifting in space. The remaining 13 had surrendered intact. Not a single Earth vessel had been destroyed. Hannah watched from the bridge as human boarding shuttles approached the Vorthog flagship. Admiral Gorthok sat slumped in his command chair, staring at the tactical displays that showed his fleet's complete defeat. His eyes had lost their burning intensity and now looked dull with shock. "In 40 years of conquest, I have never seen such precision," Commander Dex said quietly. "Your fighters moved like they could read our thoughts. Your weapons found weaknesses we did not know existed." Hannah nodded. "Earth's military has spent 50 years studying every form of warfare. We analyzed battles from across the galaxy, even ones we weren't part of. When you attacked our research ship, you gave us 3 weeks to prepare for your arrival. The bridge doors opened and human soldiers entered in full combat armor. Their plasma rifles were ready, but not threatening. Behind them walked a tall man, with graying hair and calm eyes. Hannah recognized him immediately. "Captain Park," she said, with relief. "Dr. Kim, are you injured?" Captain Park's voice was professional but concerned. "Fine, sir. Svorthok treated me reasonably well once they decided I was valuable." Hannah looked at Admiral Gorthok. "Tia, they wanted information about Earth's defenses." Captain Park followed, her gaze to the defeated alien commander. "Admiral Gorthok, I presume. Your empire's reputation for conquest is well known throughout this region of space." The Vorthok admiral slowly stood up. Even in defeat, he was an imposing figure. "You know, of the Vorthok Empire, we know about all 47 species you've conquered," Captain Park replied calmly. "We've been monitoring your expansion for decades, waiting for the day you would notice Earth." This revelation hit the Vorthok like another weapon. "Commander," Dex stepped forward. "You have been watching us. For how long?" "Since your first ships entered this sector of the galaxy. We intercepted your communications, studied your tactics, and analyzed your technology. When you conquered the Kalani homeworld, we learned about your plasma weapons. When you destroyed the Thorak colonies, we developed countermeasures for your boarding tactics." Admiral Gorthek's scarred face twisted with understanding and rage. "Every battle we fought taught you how to defeat us." "Exactly," Captain Park said. "The Vorthok Empire became very good at conquering weak opponents, but you never learned how to fight against equals." Behind Captain Park, more human soldiers entered the bridge. They moved with the same precision Hannah had seen in the space battle. Every action was planned and efficient. These were not primitive warriors stumbling through their first alien contact. These were professionals who had trained for this exact scenario. "Dr. Kim," Captain Park said, "Lieutenant Dae-Ho-Song detected the destruction of your research vessel within 6 hours of the attack. Our long-range sensors tracked the Vorthok fleet as it traveled toward Earth." "You knew they were coming the whole time?" Hannah asked. "We've been tracking Admiral Gorthak's fleet since it left Vorthok space. We knew their route, their speed, and their probable tactics before they were halfway here." Captain Park turned to the Vorthok admiral. "Your species has become predictable through success." Captain gestured to his soldiers. "Secure all Vorthok weapons and prepare the alien crew for transport. They will be treated according to the interstellar accords for prisoners of war." Commander Thex looked surprised. "You will not kill us. We destroyed your ship and threatened your homeworld. Humans prefer to solve problems through negotiation when possible," Captain Park replied. "Your empire will be given a choice: peaceful coexistence or continued conflict." Admiral Gorthok laughed bitterly. "You think the Vorthok Empire will negotiate with humans? We have conquered 47 worlds. We do not make peace with inferior species." Captain Park's expression remained calm. "Admiral, your species just lost an entire invasion fleet to what you called an inferior species. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your assumptions about who is superior." As the human soldiers escorted the Vorthok crew off the bridge, Hannah found herself alone with Captain Park. The weight of everything that had happened suddenly hit her. "My crew," she said quietly. "Captain Yoon and the others." "I'm sorry, Dr. Kim. We found the wreckage of the New Soul. There were no other survivors." Captain Park's voice was gentle, but their sacrifice was not meaningless. "The data we recovered from your ship's computers helped us understand Vorthok technology." Hannah nodded, fighting back tears. Her friends had died, but their deaths had helped save Earth from invasion. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we make contact with the Vorthok Empire officially. Diplomat Sujin Choi is already preparing for negotiations. The Empire can choose to continue their expansion and face Earth's military, or they can join the growing alliance of peaceful species. Captain Park looked out at the disabled Vorthok ships being towed by Earth vessels. The galaxy is changing, Dr. Kim. For thousands of years, species like the Vorthok have conquered others through superior technology and ruthless tactics. But humanity brings something new to the galaxy. What's that? We've learned to fight smarter, not just harder. Every species the Vorthok conquered taught us something about warfare. Every battle they won showed us their weaknesses. They thought they were building an empire, but they were actually training their future opponents. 3 days later, Hannah stood in the briefing room aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship Soul's Pride. Through the large windows, she could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. The planet that the Vorthok had expected to conquer easily remained free and unharmed. Captain Park entered the room carrying a datapad. The negotiations with the Vorthok Empire have begun. They're not happy about losing an entire fleet, but they're willing to talk. Will there be peace? Hannah asked. Time will tell. The Empire is being forced to accept that they're no longer the strongest power in this region of space. Some of their conquered species are already asking for Earth's protection. Hannah thought about her time as a prisoner on the Vorthok flagship. They're not evil, just arrogant. They've been winning for so long that they forgot other species could learn and adapt. It's exactly what Diplomat Choi is telling them. The age of easy conquest is over. Any species that wants to expand through warfare will face organized resistance. Captain Park handed her the datapad. Your report on Vorthok society and technology has been invaluable. The diplomatic team specifically requested your insights. Hannah looked at the report she had written. It contained everything she had learned about the Vorthok during her captivity, their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their capacity for change. They thought I was alone and helpless, she said. They thought Earth was unprepared. But Earth was already on the way. Captain Park smiled. That should be our motto. When predators come hunting humanity, they'll discover that Earth was already on the way. Outside the window, Earth's defense fleet continued its patrol. The planet that had once seemed like easy prey to the Vorthok Empire was now recognized as the center of a new galactic power. Humanity had announced its presence in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through the defense of peace. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of humanity had begun.